Hello, so in a minute we're going to learn how to install Kali Linux on VM Workstation. But before we get onto it, for those of you who'd like to know what VM Workstation is, VM Workstation is a program that allows running the emulation of several operating systems within one computer. It's just as if you are having separate computers. So it's like having numerous PCs in one. It is used for testing and developing and what have you. Now, Kali Linux, on the other hand, is a Linux distribution which is developed specifically for security experts, constituting many tools which assist them in hacking or carrying out penetration testing, investigation, computer forensics, and etc. So, this video I will be demonstrating how to run Kali Linux on VM Workstation. I already made a video on how to run Kali Linux on VirtualBox, and I've also made another video on the differences between VirtualBox and VM Workstation, their pros and cons, and etc. So you could, both of those videos is going to be in the description, so you could kindly click on them. You can check them out to see which of them suits you. Some people have these questions as to whether VirtualBox is better than VM Workstation and so on, and I've given my honest opinion on it in the videos below. So let's get to installing Kali Linux on VM Workstation. So as usual, we'll open our favorite browser. So I'm going to open a browser here, and I'll go to the main website for VM Workstation. It's just as easy as typing VM Workstation. Alright, so I'll click on the first link here. Now I've been sent to their main site. I'm going to accept the cookies. We're going to download the VM Workstation player. So I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm running the Windows operating system, so I'm going to click on download. Alright, so now let's give it a second for the VM Workstation to download. So now that it's done downloading, let's go ahead and open it. So now let's go ahead and install it. Next, I'll agree to the terms. It's next again. Over here, I would like to download the required drivers. So I'm going to click on enhanced keyboard drivers. Then I'll click next. Mind you, if you are using that option, you'd have to have some internet connection. So I'm connected to my Wi-Fi here. Then I'm going to click next. Of course, I would want a desktop icon and also a start menu program folder. So I'll click next. Then install. So now that the setup is done installing, I'm going to click finish. Now it's asking me to restart my program. However, I don't want to restart it now, so I'm going to click on no. Let me refresh it a bit. Now we have our VM Workstation installed. The next is to install our Kali Linux image. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, now that you have your Kali Linux image installed, let's go ahead and install Kali Linux on VM Workstation. So I'm going to open VM Workstation now. Alright, now on this page, I'll click on create new virtual machine. Now you have two options here, either to use the advanced option or the typical option. Now if you're a new user, I recommend you leaving it in typical. Now if you are installing Kali Linux via a disk, you would select this. However, my PC doesn't even have a disk, so I'm going to select installer disk image file here, and then I'm going to browse to the directory where my Kali Linux was downloaded, and then I'll open it. Once it's opened, it will ask you it's going to prompt you could not detect which operating system, blah blah blah. Don't worry, just click next, and then you come and select Linux. If you were installing a Microsoft Windows, you would select Windows, but we are using Linux, so click on Linux. Now you will be prompted that the version you've seen Ubuntu. Kali Linux is not an Ubuntu based, it's actually a Debian based. So come and click on this drop down button and look for Debian. So we installed Kali Linux 64-bit, so you select the latest version of Debian 64-bit. Then you click next. Now for the location, you could just go ahead and click next, but I have better plans for this, so I'm going to change the location where I'm going to install this. So I'll use my this D. Great. Then I'll click next. At this page, they're asking me to select the maximum number of disk size I would like to allocate for this Kali Linux image. I'm going to, you can leave it at 20. 20 is a recommended amount of disk space, but I'm going to put 200 gigabytes. As a matter of fact, why don't I make it 250 gigabytes? Now we have these two options. One is prompting you to store all your virtual disk files in one file. Other is telling you to split it. I'm going to click on store virtual disks as a single file because it's way more faster than you splitting it. However, when you split it, it's very easy to transfer the whole operating system into a different PC. However, I'm going to leave it at store virtual disks as a single file because it's very fast. Then I'm going to click next. Now, if you are done with the process, but if you want to change certain things, let's say you wanted to add more RAM, if you wanted to allocate more memory to this, you could click on the customized hardware, and then you can allocate more resources to it. So I could maybe add more RAM to this guy. My CPU, I could add more CPU cores to it, but I'm okay with this. So I'm just going to close it, and then I'll click on finish. Now that this is done, you can now click on power on this machine. So it's going to load and power on your machine. Then I'm going to click on graphical install. Alright, so let me make this a bit larger. So over here, I'm prompted to select my language. I'm going to click on English. Then I'll click continue. I'm prompted my location. I'm leaving it at United States. Then I'll click continue. My keyboard configuration, I'm leaving it at American. Then I click continue. So now it's going to configure your keyboard and also your language based on the location you selected it, and also load some few additional components. So I'm going to relax here and wait for it to do its work. Alright, so now over here it's time for us to select a host name for our machine. I prefer leaving it as Kali, but if you want to customize stuff, you can change the name. I would recommend you leave it at Kali because if you are an advanced user of Kali Linux and you use Kali as you use a different name as your host name, but in the process of you doing certain things, when you are requested for the host name, if you don't put the actual host name you use during this process, it might not work. So I prefer leaving everything at Kali Linux, Kali actually. So I'm going to click continue. Domain name, I don't actually have a domain, so I'll leave it as blank and click continue. So full name of new user, I'm going to leave it as Ultra. Then I'll click continue. So username for your account is going to be Ultra, yes. So I'm going to click continue. And I'm here over here. I'm prompted to put in a password. I'll put my password as 12345. I don't recommend you doing that, but for tutorial purposes, I'm going to do mine as 12345. Mind you, you have to take note of this password because you would need it to log into Kali Linux. So Kali Linux, make sure you put in a password before you actually start to use the machine. That's how interesting it is in using Linux-based machines. So I'm going to click continue. Now over here I'm supposed to configure the clock. I actually, since I'm running this on a virtual machine, I'm going to leave it at Eastern. Then I'm going to click continue. Later on, if there's a need for me to change the time zone, I can easily do it. So I'm just going to click continue so that we move on. Now this is the most interesting part of the installation processes, where you have to partition your hard disk and set your RAM and whatever. So I prefer you leave it as guided use entire disk. Guided use entire disk. This would prevent you from running into other problems in the future. I've seen videos where people will take you through some various steps that take you through manual and have you set some stuffs that are very unnecessary just to have quality content and stuff, just to have different content and stuff. But I would prefer you leave it at guided use entire disk. Then click continue. I'm going to select my hard disk and then I'll click continue. All files in one partition and click continue. Now that I'm done setting up my partition, I'm going to click on continue. Yes, continue. Now Kali Linux is going to be installed on my hard disk. It might take some time, so you'd have to be patient and wait for it to install the base system. So I'm going to speed up this installation process. Alright, now in this part of the screen, I recommend clicking on continue. Now that the setup is installed, it is time to install the grub bootloader. Take note that if you should click no, you won't be able to access the Kali Linux. It's going to be a whole lot of issues. So I'm going to leave it at yes and I'll click on continue. So now it's asking where you'd like to install the grub bootloader. So it's supposed to be installed exactly where the image is installed. So I'm going to click on the second option and I'll click on continue. So it's going to go ahead and install the grub bootloader. So if you have gotten to this page, it means you have been successful. So if you've gotten to this page, it means you have been successful in shit. So if you've gotten to this page, it means you've been successful in installing Kali Linux. So the last thing to do is to click on continue and have it finish installing. Now just press enter. And you'll be greeted with this page. Once you're greeted with this page, you have to type in the username you kept in during the installation process and also the password. So remember, the username was Ultra and the password was 12345. And just like that, you've installed Kali Linux on your virtual box successfully. Now upon installing Kali Linux on your virtual box successfully, there are a lot of things you'd have to do, but we're going to leave it here. And if you are new to Kali Linux and you'd want to learn more about Kali Linux, how to use it for ethical hacking, how to use it for pen testing, etc., I would suggest you kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, I'm going to create a series where I explain in details from beginners to advanced how you could use Kali Linux for pen testing. So that is it for today. See you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.